My sister got pregnant by my husband when she lived with us and wants me to leave so they can be a family. But now she feels scammed because my husband has no assets of his own. I, being 34, let my sister Yuli, who is 28, move in with me a couple of months ago because she was in a very bad financial situation. Yuli had lost her job due to her company closing down. 2 weeks after that, she became very ill due to the West Nile virus. After speaking to my parents, I decided to have her move in with me for a few weeks so I could look after her, monitor her progress, and make sure she could save up on rent, as she evidently wouldn't be able to go back to work for a while. She was probably at her worst at the time, and it was me who helped her because our parents don't live close by and she doesn't exactly have many friends in a position to help her. It was what I would do for any family member and friend to help her in a time of need. But she repaid me by having an affair with my husband. Plus, she had the audacity to tell me that it was me who should leave the house so they could keep her family happy because she was pregnant. This happened a couple of days ago. Yuli asked my husband and I to because she had something very important to tell us. I thought she was finally going to move out because she had recovered quite well over the last few weeks. I assumed she was going to tell us that she was finally going back to work and would soon be out of our lives. Instead, she told us that she and my husband had been having an affair for the last few weeks, and that she was now pregnant. When I looked at my husband, I saw that he was just as shocked as I was. Clearly, this wasn't something she had discussed with him before telling me, which explains a lot. Anyway, after she told me that she was pregnant with my husband's baby, she added that she understood that this would probably come as a shock to me and that she was very sorry this had happened, but at the end of the day, there was no way I could amend the past now. I would greatly appreciate it if you would vacate the house because you would feel very uncomfortable being around me in your current condition. I was fuming, but I didn't show it. I simply told her calmly that I was not vacating the house because this property is mine. If anyone had to leave, it would be her. Taking my cheating husband's ass, they could start their happy family wherever they wanted because I was going to file for divorce, and I didn't even want to see them again. I spoke to them as calmly as possible, controlled my anger, and tried to handle the situation with dignity. They had already blindsided me, so I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me lose control in front of them. After I told her that this was my property and that I wouldn't be leaving, she told me that I had to. She apparently thought I was joking, but then my husband told her that I was indeed not joking and explained that he was a homemaker and always had been. Apparently, I had lied to her about everything in the beginning. For context, my husband and I have been together for 8 years. We have been married for the last 5, and a couple of months after we got married, I decided to take a chance and start my own business. Thank God it has been going very well. So my husband and I decided that he could stay home and work as a writer, which was something he enjoyed as a hobby, but could now pursue full-time. For the last 4 years, he has been home working on his great novel and taking care of the housework. We have no children, so he doesn't have much to do. All the property and everything else belongs to me because technically I bought it, and we both thought it was only fair that I should own everything. I bet he's starting to regret it now. After he told Yuli that he didn't really own anything and that he lied to her about everything, she started losing her temper at him and claimed that she'd been scammed. She started yelling at him, calling him a scammer and a liar. Even though it was entertaining to watch her lose her mind over him, I wasn't interested in any of it at the moment. I just wanted them both out of my house. I had to step in, get them to stop yelling at each other, and tell them to get the hell out of my house right then and there. I wasn't willing to give them time. I just wanted them gone from my house.
Seeing as my husband is relatively intelligent, I knew there was no way I was going to come out of this unscathed, as there is nothing more important to me than my self-respect and dignity. I was never going to forgive a cheater, so she quietly went into the bedroom and started packing. Julie, on the other hand, decided to start begging me on her knees, telling me she would do anything to fix what happened, but she needed a place to stay. She said she can't kick a pregnant woman out, especially if she's going to have a child that would be her nephew. The fact that she mentioned we were family is what really set me off. So I grabbed her arm, forced her to her feet, walked her to the door, and then physically pushed her out. I was very rough with her, but I didn't care. I was furious that she said we were family and that I couldn't kick her out. It really set me off. To sleep with my husband, we weren't family, but now she wanted to use that as an excuse. Once she was out, she started begging me not to do this, but I slammed the door shut. I then went to the guest room. I started putting all of her things in her suitcases in a messy way, not caring if they broke, and in a few minutes, I threw those suitcases outside along with her. I told her to get lost or I would call the police. She continued crying, but I just closed the door and went back inside. A few minutes later, my husband came out with her suitcases, telling me he was so sorry. I pretended not to hear him. Julie continued crying and begging on the porch for about an hour after he left, but I put my headphones on and blocked her out completely. At a certain point, I didn't hear her whining on the porch anymore, and I realized that she finally left. That same night, I spoke to my lawyer, told him everything that happened, and told him that I wanted to file for divorce. I thought about telling my friends and family later, but the next day I received a call from my parents telling me that what I had done was horrible. To my parents, I had been cruel and insensitive to my sister, someone who had been going through a lot lately. It seemed very strange to me because up until now, my parents have always treated us, Yulia and I, alike. It's not like she's the favorite child or anything like that, but the fact that they were defending her didn't sit well with me. They told me that they knew she was pregnant and couldn't kick her out of the house in that state, especially when I knew perfectly well that she was between jobs at the moment and recovering from a serious illness. They said it would take her time to get back on her feet. Plus, she didn't have anyone else here who could take care of her as well as I could. All of her friends were in the same financial situation and had their own jobs and families to worry about instead of taking care of her. So, as her sister, the least I could do was forgive her for her stupidity and be there for her. To top it all off, they pointed out that it was my husband who had seduced her, and it wasn't his fault, as my husband had been telling her that he was the owner of everything and that he handled the financial situation at home because he was a very successful writer of novels and movie scripts. Since he didn't want the fame that came with it, he claimed to remain anonymous. My sister, being an idiot, actually believed all of it and started to think that maybe he was someone important. So she ended up seducing me that she had been having an affair with my husband so that the two of them could kick me out. Unfortunately for them, that plan went awry, especially since she hadn't even discussed anything with my husband before telling me all this. Basically ruined everything for her and my husband. So I defended my position. Firstly, I asked them which sister. I don't have a sister. Then I argued that I had every right to kick her out because she was the one who decided to have an affair with my husband, regardless of whether he had a part in it or not. It was clear that she had an equal part. They had both teamed up to betray me, so there was no point in kicking my husband out and letting her stay like nothing had happened. I didn't care if she was pregnant or not, or if she could work at the time or not, because I had considered all of that before, and I let her stay
with me for months. She thanked me by having an affair with my husband while under my roof. Plus, it's not even that she was heavily pregnant and couldn't handle things. I was probably only a few weeks along, and I'm sure she could handle it. Even if I was 9 months along, I would have still kicked her out because what she did was disgusting. After all, she was ready to kick me out when she thought our house belonged to my husband, so I see it as poetic justice. But my parents kept harping on that one point over and over again, highlighting especially how blunt I had been with her. I got tired of listening to them and hung up. It was obvious they weren't going to avoid this one thing, and we haven't spoken since. Do you think I was wrong to kick my pregnant sister out of the house? Update 1. I know some people think kicking a pregnant woman out of my house is horrible, but I also couldn't just leave her living under my roof. It's crazy. Luckily, most people think I did okay and that she should find a place to stay. But, continuing with update, I blocked my parents yesterday. Unfortunately, all of this has hit me hard, but it can't just leave from working to recover from what's going on in my personal life. I'm the boss. I'll just have to put up a strong front and face the situation. So at work, everything's been business as usual.
But the second I come home, I break down because emotionally I'm devastated. I haven't let the cracks show over the past few days, but now it's really starting to hurt. My lawyer and I filed for divorce a couple of days ago, and soon I think my husband will be served. I know he's not going to contest the divorce. He knows me well enough to know that if he does, I'll make sure he pays for it. But at the end of the day, it still hurts. Winning the divorce isn't automatically going to make the situation better for me. I just can't imagine why, after 8 years together, he had to have an affair with my sister. I truly believed that we were in love. I honestly thought we were going to be together forever and grow old together. But now I'm doubting everything we've had over the past few years. Maybe this isn't even the only person he cheated with. Maybe this is just the first time he got caught even. The thought of that, it breaks my heart. But there's not much I can do about it other than accept it and try to move on. He's the only person that hasn't tried to contact me since I kicked him out. My parents have, and so has Yuli, but that's different because they just want me to take her back so she can continue to stay here for free. It's even more insane that my parents are on her side at the moment. In my original post, I talked about how my parents have never had a favorite child. They have always treated Yuli and I equally, but now I honestly don't know what to make of this. I have no expectations of Yuli. With Yuli, we were never the best of friends, but it's not like we got on too badly. That's why I agreed to help her and allowed her to stay here. We already had a spare room in the house, so I thought, why not? That's what my parents wanted too, so I didn't see a problem with helping her because that's what family does. At least, I never expected her to betray me like that. I didn't expect someone you've been helping for months to stick a knife in your back. However, with my parents, it's a different story. Given that they've always been reasonable and fair, I expected them to be upset with Yuli. I'm not saying that they aren't. Based on the conversation we had earlier, it was clear that they weren't happy with the way Yuli had handled the situation. But they kept insisting that the damage had been done and that now the only thing we could do was accept what had happened and try to move on. Honestly, I don't know what's wrong with my parents, but they have seriously let me down with their behavior. I think I've lost all the respect I had for them, and I don't think I can ever get it back because of this situation. Right now, I am emotionally drained.
Mentally, I'm only focused on my work. Everything in my personal life has practically fallen apart. I haven't even spoken to my friends about this, but I know that at some point I'll have to let them know what's going on. After all, my husband and I have a lot of mutual friends, and I would rather they heard about the situation from me than him. I don't know what he would say to them at this point. I don't know what to expect from anyone anyways. Right now, I'm just trying to focus on a couple of things for a while. First, of course, that my work doesn't suffer because of this, and I'll make sure that it does. Secondly, I also have to worry about the divorce proceedings, although I'm 90% sure he won't contest the terms, as I've decided to be fairly fair and reasonable. There's still a small possibility of uncertainty as to what I might do. Right now, everything is unknown, so I'm getting all the paperwork ready just in case. Other than that, I'm trying to keep my mind as clear as possible because I really don't want to overexert myself and end up in a spiral. That's the last thing I need right now. But getting my feelings out has been really helpful, and I really, really appreciate the fact that so many of you have reached out, commented on my post, and been so supportive. You don't know how much I appreciate it. Update 2. As I expected, after he was notified, my husband decided to contact me and tell me that he was not going to contest the divorce. He found the terms of the divorce to be very fair. He sent me a text message saying all of this, and then in the next, he told me that for the past few days, he had been thinking of ways to apologize to me, but he couldn't come up with anything because everything he could come up with seemed weak and insincere. So he decided to get it out of his system by telling me he was so sorry over text. He told me that he had lied to Yuli just to impress her because lately he had been feeling really weird about not owning anything and having to rely on his wife for his finances. We don't even have a kid, so he couldn't even have the dignity of being a stay-at-home mom. He felt worthless as his novel wasn't progressing well either. He felt like he had wasted 4 other years of his life on something that was going nowhere. He felt particularly depressed about it, but he couldn't even acknowledge it to himself, let alone talk to me about it.
He said he felt really bad about himself, and when Yuli came along, before he could even think about how depraved what he was doing was, he started lying to her about everything, trying to impress her. Soon after they were sleeping together, he thought it was going to be just a slip of the tongue, and even though he felt so guilty, he couldn't control himself. He needed a way to take his mind off everything that was going on, and that was his way. But then she got pregnant, and we had that awful conversation 2 weeks ago, after which everything went to absolute shit. He told me he was really sorry for everything he did. He ruined everything we had, but he promised me that this was the first and last time he'd ever cheated on me. He swore this had never happened before and said he really needed me to trust him on that. Maybe sometime in the future, if I could, he hoped that I would forgive him for everything he'd done wrong. That was the message. And after reading it, I ended up in tears because it was just another reminder of everything that I'd lost. I thought I had this man that I loved and who loved me, but in the span of a day, I lost all of that. Believe me, it's not easy to deal with that. I know every single person who's gone through a divorce or been cheated on probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. He could say a bunch of horrible things about him to make me hate him for now, but at the end of the day, it still hurts. I hated myself for crying over that text. But at least, after I finished crying, I gathered the strength to block him without replying. To be honest, even though I was really upset about it all, he didn't deserve a reply. I wasn't going to forgive him, especially not now when everything is so fresh,
Had said, because all he had to do was talk to me. I, for one, never ever made him feel bad for choosing to stay home and work on his novel. I'm not a very creative person. I've never been one for writing or anything apart from now. I really have to get these things off my chest, but I respected his creative side. I didn't see anything wrong with him staying home. I could understand that maybe his fragile male ego couldn't handle it. Maybe other people made comments and maybe he just got bitter. But the least he could have done after 8 years with me was tell me what was going on. We got married to support each other, and I was going to be there for him through it. So maybe we could have worked it out together, but he chose not to. He chose to lean on Yuli, and that's how we ended up in this mess. The more I think about it, the more disgusting and pathetic I find the fact that he lied to her about so many things just to make himself look bigger and better. It's pathetic. I loved him just the way he was, but that wasn't enough for him. This will just never make sense to me. At least with Yuli, I can understand his motive. I wanted to live my life in Gili without putting in any effort, and he thought he could do that by getting pregnant and moving in with my husband, the so-called rich man. So I can just choose to ignore his existence now. In a few months, I'll be done with the divorce, and then I'll never have to see him or think about him again. Update 3. It's been a couple of days since my last update, and I'd had a peaceful few days, but this morning my parents turned up at my house. I found it strange because in the past few years, ever since they moved to my dad's hometown to run the family business with my uncle, they hardly ever visit us. It was usually Yuli and I who had to go see them. So the fact that they had taken a flight to come see me was a big deal in itself. But I knew they were only here to talk about Yulia, so when I opened the door, I told them. If they were here to talk about her, I really didn't want to listen to them. After all, there's only one Sunday a week, and I really didn't want to waste mine going over it again. I'd said everything I had to say, and so had they. Right now, we had nothing more to discuss regarding this situation. I also made it very clear that I would only let them in if they asked me first for an apology. So you could either apologize to me right now, or you could leave. I made my boundaries very clear, but my parents told me that they had come specifically to talk to me about Yuli. They said, we need to talk about this because it's not right the way I was treating them, and it wasn't right the way I treated Yuli to them. We were a family and we ran things differently. Once again, they were bringing up the subject of family, and just like with Yuli, I lost my patience with them too. This is not how families treat each other, at least not in the family that I would like to have. At least I'll grant that in this family we run things differently. My sister sleeping with my husband and me kicking her out of my house, that's very different to normal families. I completely embarrassed my parents. They kept trying to babble and pick arguments, but I didn't even let them talk. I brushed past all their arguments. After I finished, my mom was literally reduced to tears, but they were on my turf. I could talk to them however I wanted, especially because they decided to pick on me this morning. All this talk should be being had with Yuli, with the person who acted wrong, not me. Anyway, after I finished yelling at them, my mom was crying so hard, my dad just told me that he never wants to talk to me again because I was a horrible daughter for making my own mother who gave me life cry like that. But I don't care. They can think I'm crazy. I know I'm hot, and that's enough for me. If there are a couple of crazy people, it's my parents. Although my sister isn't very sane either, and I must be honest. Update 4. It's been a month since my last update, and I haven't been in contact with any of my family, not even Yuli. And definitely not my parents. I just know that they are sending them money. As for me,
Future ex-husband, I heard from a couple of people that she's now living with her parents. Once the divorce is finalized, she plans on moving to another state. Before you ask me, I don't know what she's going to do with her son. By now, pretty much all of our friends know exactly what happened, and most of them have started to cut him out of their lives. At least the majority. Some don't want to get involved and are trying to stay neutral. All I know is that my life is slowly but steadily getting back on track, and I'll do anything to protect my peace. Now, I am not exactly happy, but at least I'm at peace, which is an improvement from last month. Little by little, I know I'll be happy again. I mean, all bad things always come to an end. Update 5. I have a pretty recent update because there have been some developments that you guys might want to know about, so I'm not going to leave it without you knowing. My sister has lost the pregnancy, and she's been blaming me. Because according to her, she lost it because of all the stress that I've caused her. My parents are also on that same crusade. The good thing is that they're not bothering me directly, but this is news that's coming to me through quote-unquote neutral people who, they say they don't want to take sides, but in a way they are doing it by accusing me of killing a child out of pride. I find it curious because none of them have decided to accept my sister into their home, so from my point of view, they should also be guilty by their own standards. I tried to be a good sister to her by helping her when I could, but if she betrays me, then it's the same as any stranger. She is no longer my responsibility. If she cared about her pregnancy, she shouldn't have slept with someone's husband who happened to be her sister, or at least used protection. None of this is normal in the fantasy world some people live in, but I don't care when accusations come from people as irrational as them. It's not worth my time. Update 6. My ex-husband contacted me a few hours ago, and you won't believe what I had to say. No, he didn't ask me back. We didn't end on bad terms, in quotes. That's why I responded. He has accepted like a man who made a mistake, and at least he has made my divorce easier, so I don't hold a grudge. Although I do it mostly for myself, it's not worth occupying my time hating him or thinking about him. In no way is any unfaithful worth it. I think what he had to tell me is quite interesting because he basically confirmed that my sister was not pregnant. She called me to tell me because she knew that many people were talking bad about me and that she needed to know the truth. She has also told those people she knows because he was asking her for proof of pregnancy and asked her to accompany her to a doctor's appointment on several occasions, but she was always quite evasive about it. Finally, the news came that she lost it. When he asked her for proof of pregnancy, she didn't have any. She spoke to my parents, and they didn't have any either. There is no proof that she had a pregnancy or that she lost it. She just woke up one day and told everyone that she had lost the baby. So that's where all this ends, and so begins the big one that everyone who has been accusing me of making my sister lose the baby takes. My parents have tried to contact me to repair the relationship and have even stopped funding my sister now that they will not be grandparents. But this gesture doesn't do much for me. I am not interested in what they do now with my sister. What I wanted was for them to support me. How would any father with a daughter who was betrayed? So no, he is for them too. So my sister lost a sister, a house, and my help for sleeping with my husband and faking a pregnancy. And my parents have lost a daughter for choosing a fake pregnancy. I think the three of them are ready to go to Vegas and bet, sure that they will do very well.